This video will be focusing on how to track a unit on the live page. Selecting an active unit displays all the trips it has performed currently for the day, beginning from the first trip at the bottom to the current or latest trip listed at the top. Let's talk about trips. If I was to ask you what a trip is, you'd probably answer by saying that a trip is a journey made from one point to another. This is a 100% correct answer, but the system understands a trip a bit differently. System-wise, a trip is an activity triggered by an event irrespective of whether the unit is moving or not. These triggered events could be ignition, active inputs or outputs, or even movement without ignition. Trips performed are labeled in order of occurrence. That is, the first trip is labeled trip 1, the second trip 2, and so on. A trip is denoted by a start and stop flag, which tells you when and where the trip started and ended. There is also the total distance covered and the duration of the trip displayed here as well. Clicking on a performed trip displays the tracking information on the map, and also a graph pops up below the map. This graph is called the interactive trip graph, which represents the tracking information shown on the map in the graph. Hovering your mouse over any plotted point of the graph displays the activity that took place at that point in time during the tracking of the unit. And at the same time, that plotted point is also highlighted with more information shown on the map. You can also select and highlight any portion of the graph to zoom in order to see the points better, and click on the Reset Zoom button to zoom out. The interactive trip graph is a functionality that needs to be enabled in the map preferences under the options settings or in the admin page. In the tracking information, the plotted points are called logs. We have 3 types of logs, namely the movement log, the idling log, and the stop log. Clicking on any of the logs displays the tracking information that took place at the time. To look at the tracking information in more detail, you can click on the Show Detailed Trip Data, which pops up a menu with 3 tabs. The first tab, called Tables, displays all the logs for that particular trip, depicting the date and the time the log was recorded, the location, the heading, the speed, and if any input or output was triggered. The first log is always listed at the bottom and the last log at the top. The Charts tab represents the tracking information of the trip using charts. The first is a trip speed bands chart, which displays the speed ranges covered by the unit along with the idling and stop durations. There is also the trip speed profile chart, which shows the speeds attained for the trip. Also, the trip activity over time chart displays the entire trip activity and how it occurred. And finally, the trip activity profile that shows the total performance of the vehicle in terms of movement, idling, and stop using a pie chart. You can also print or download these charts to work with. The Details tab, which is the last one listed, provides a list of options that allows you to customize your trips by adding more information. The Trip Info provides the ability to name your trip, and the Trip Cost enables you to cost your trip with respect to distance, time, or by a set cost, which we will look at more in another tutorial video.